I had my eyes closed, my ignorance was bliss, but then it died slow as I replaced it with my fist. Now I'd rather know and rise from this abyss. Now that I'm aware that I'm infinite consciousness, I had my eyes closed, ignorance was bliss. Now I'm being followed for spreading these messages. The threats might be hollow, my response serious. I reject Rain Man and umbrellas till get wet. I had my eyes closed.
Next, we have our actual Earth, built in 3 parts as well, both above and below. Like they say, as above, so below. So we have 3-part pyramid here, and each level of these pyramids are our lands. So we have the crust, the mantle, inner core, and outer core. This is also what gives us our 4 elements of life: air, earth, water, fire. Also, now that you have this viewpoint, you can see that there is such thing as space. However, it's not to go to other planets up there, it's to go to outer lands beyond our perimeter. Why can't we go to the perimeters? This is why right here. These are called toroidal fields. You guys know them as the Van Allen belts. There are 5 toroidal fields that separate the lands and give each its own ecosystem, its own sun and moon, and give each its own atmosphere, and rotate and oscillate to give the Earth its breathing system. Okay, this allows the whole orb to breathe in and out, and these toroidal fields protect each perimeter, or we can call them districts. So we are on the center one, and you'll see 4 here with a tiny one in the center of our Earth, which is the North Pole. Okay, there is an actual polar field there. There is actual energy there. Compasses get pulled there. So let's take a closer look. These electromagnetic fields all oscillate at different speeds. So if we go by this theory, then the sun is traveling around us at around 1,000 miles an hour. And the other stars are also traveling in their respective speeds in their own perimeters. The second perimeter with Mars is 67,000 miles an hour, and the outer perimeter is close to 500,000 miles an hour. So all of these have their own oscillations, both the actual rings and the actual planets or sun and moons within them. Each of these lands, each of these rings has 4 atmospheres to go along with it. And that is the troposphere on the bottom part, the stratosphere just above us, the mesosphere, and then the thermosphere. And again, going back to the vortex that spins from above and below is what gives all of these their oscillations. We're going to talk more about oscillations a little later because they are very, very important. Okay, so now let's break down the planets. Each land has its own sun and moon. Mercury, which is the very center of centers of everything in the North Pole, is both a sun and moon. Okay, it is both, therefore we're not counting it here. We're saying there's 3 suns and 3 moons, man and woman, left and right, positive, negative. Each land has its own ecosystem. This is where the theory of extraterrestrials or extra terrain, extra land, come from. The outer ring may also be where dinosaurs, creatures, aliens, again, a different ecosystem, different light sources, colors, air, breath, everything is different. So, when they say they're trying to explore outer space, it doesn't really mean up, because those are luminaries, those are stars, those cannot be landed on. They mean outer lands beyond the perimeters known as the South Pole or the Antarctic. You guys have taken in a lot of data. Congrats for sticking around this long. Let's quickly recap. We have the Holy Trinity creating the womb. Then the Holy Trinity separates into positive, neutrality, and negative. Then a vortex is created. Then a rock is created for our lands. Then our toroidal fields are created to create cycles and to create breath and to create oscillations. Then suns and moons are created, and they also have their own oscillations, and they are all respective to their own lands. So let's break down oscillations some more. Here we simply see a sun and a moon going around in a circle. And here we see 3 going around in circles. Now some are oscillating faster than others, but they're all generally going in a circle. And they are now going to oscillate in a lot of different ways as well. Here you see the original oscillation to the different types of patterns you can create while doing your big oscillation. So this is a double oscillation. And here you can see that all the planets are also moving up and down over their oscillations as well. So we have a big oscillation, and then a pattern within that as a secondary oscillation. Then we're moving up and down as a third oscillation, and they're changing patterns over time and could be adding and removing other oscillations. Who really knows? You can also create different types of oscillations based on the different wave type. We are known as a sine wave. Everything is fluid. There are also sawtooth, triangle, and square wave types. This is also used a lot in music production. We'll go into that a little bit more later too. But you can see that these patterns create beautiful shapes, and they also depict our time, our seasons, our summers, winters, when the planets breathing, opening and closing, that gives us all of our different oscillations. These oscillations also explain the various lunar and solar eclipses. Think about it. In certain oscillations, the sun will be going in front of the moon. In other oscillations, the sun will be going behind the moon, or vice versa. And that probably happens with all the planets. That's why sometimes you'll see people ask, why do I see 2 suns or 3 moons or whatever, the various variations and phenomena that we see. Generationally, these patterns have been tracked to some degree. If you actually pause the video as these are going around in their circles, you'll start to create amazing shapes. And if you connect all the planets and the dots, so to speak, you'll see where the yin-yang symbol comes from, the positive negatives come from, color theory comes from, frequencies come from, everything basically comes from these oscillations. It is a beautiful system of design. They say the fallen angels or the illuminated ones have had this knowledge, which I'm presenting to you today as a simple theory, but there's probably some truths to some of this, have had it for a long time, and it has been perverted and distorted over time. Now, just as a side note, wouldn't it be a great story to tell the populace that you cannot get off this plane, this plane, because there is just infinite time and space outside of this plane? We only have access to the inner part. It is a special part of all this because it is the center, and we have access to the North Pole, which is where ascension happens. And I do think we are in a special time. It's not just, let's prove the earth is flat. What's beyond that? So what if it is? Well, what might be outside those perimeters? Maybe there are things we need to protect ourselves from. And or maybe it is just a bunch of land we cannot get to, but every country, every government would love to chop it up, carve it up, because there's so many precious resources out there potentially.